Justice, a secret they keep, but I see through her lies, I see the truth. Gonna make her pay for what she do. Fanny's got a reputation to uphold, but her tactics are shady. Story untold, she thinks she's clever, but I'm on to her game. I'll expose her ways and put her to shame.
Hey, all folks, and welcome to today's show. We will start with the final interesting part from yesterday, and then move directly up to today, which got really interesting with Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis was at the scene of the shooting of Donovan Thomas, the drive-by shooting. And he had things to say. And something really, really interesting about it, which we will get to when we get there. The next witness will be another friend of, not Mr. Donovan Thomas, and also interesting, but we will get there when we get there. Okay, welcome to the show, folks. All right, yeah. Welcome, by the way, and thank you all for being here. I hope you all had a great last night and good sleep and everything about it. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Nick. I do labor law. Yes, I have an actual law degree, which means I am trained in evidence evaluation, in evaluating witnesses, and everything in between. Now, my specialty is labor law, but that does not mean I'm totally oblivious to crime. Okay? So, let's see here. Yesterday, they had technical difficulties, so they went into debating something that should have been done pre-trial. And it's very, very annoying. Very, very annoying. Let's cover the law and C word and trial watch. That would be me. And we are live. Let's go.
As leftists? All right. What inquiry do you have of me? State, are you prepared to call on some witnesses or that may or may not require internet access?
We just have to old school it, so we will
That may be true.
make it happen.
Okay. All right. Who are you planning on calling tomorrow? We're going to, counsels, we appreciate your indulgence with our current witness, Detective T. His better half is having a procedure tomorrow, and that's why he cannot join us. So I appreciate you all giving him some grace and consideration. So we'll go ahead and see him on Friday afternoon. All right. Okay. Anything else before tomorrow?
We have Mr. Wise, Mr. Davis, Mr. Hendrick, Dr. Henniger, and Mr. Thomas Sr. on deck for tomorrow.
Yeah. What they're debating is Mr. Thomas Sr.
Okay. Counsels, unless y'all have anything of me, or any other inquiry, we'll see y'all tomorrow morning for 9:30 for anticipated 10 o'clock start time. All right? All right.
That gentleman, Mr. Thomas Sr., is the one that state filed a motion under 24-8-807, and I filed a response for trying to get in residual hearsay.
Okay.
Yeah. Residual hearsay is...
He would be one of the last witnesses if we even reach him.
Residual hearsay or just plain hearsay is one of the hardest hearsay to get in from the prosecution, and the statute actually say this has to be done pre-trial. So another one of the prosecution's shady business. Now we know, or at least I know what the prosecution wants him to testify about, and that is allegedly Mr. Thomas Sr. and Donovan Thomas had a discussion regarding beefs. And whatever that hearsay is, should have been handled pre-trial, had to have been handled pre-trial. And one of the reasons is this wasn't known until, this drive-by shooting was 9 years ago. This is a very recent, comparably, statement. And it should have been handled pre-trial. The prosecution filed this, not that long ago, during trial.
Tomorrow. So prior to us putting.
Do you want to take up the issue right now? I'm prepared at this point. I've read the state's request and Mr. Steele's response, which I'll include as the next court's exhibit in order.
John, if we could take it up tomorrow.
I'd rather not take it.
Well, I'll give you-
Yeah, the prosecution really don't want to take this up right now, probably because they wanted to do this as late as possible. But here we go.
Reason being is because I could take it up now and then we don't have to stop tomorrow because we've got a few minutes. It won't take that long because I've kind of got just some kind of inquiry about it anyways. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
1 second.
And it's a bit of a break.
I'll give you a few minutes to get your materials in order.
This is fun because usually it is the prosecution that brings something and the defense has to be prepared in just a few minutes. Now the tables are turned. The difference is Judge Glanville actually gives the prosecution 5 minutes to get their bearings. Usually the defense is more or less, they have to bring somebody up to argue against while the others are frantically searching for case law. Now it seems like tables are turned. At least it was yesterday.
Didn't even, thank you. Sorry. Nope.
So let's skip ahead to when they actually start. I should be better at time stamping these things.
.5 minutes each. Of course, the concern is the traditional guarantees of trustworthiness. Well, first there's notice, and assuming that there's notice in this particular case, there arguably there's some notice in this particular case of what was sought to be introduced. However, the court's kind of concerned. The court has a first concern about exactly what was said, what statements were said, line and verse. Second thing is traditional guarantees of trustworthiness. The court's concern is this is purportedly the decedent's father, who the court would have some concerns about inherent bias to why his son, about his son and the person that took his son's life. Then next would be the confrontation clause. And since arguably the defendant or defendants wouldn't have had an opportunity to cross-examine the decedent, the confrontation clause does apply in this particular circumstances when you're trying to get in residual hearsay under 807. And then the fourth issue that the court wants to discuss is it's cumulative of things that we've already been testified to. The fact that there was beef between Donovan Thomas and or some parties in this case has already been testified to by at least 3 or 4 people already. So,
And with all of that, Your Honor, you had enough for a ruling then and there.
those are 4 things I need you to address for me.
But
Um,
we all know that Judge
And there's something I missed.
Glanville
Of course, I'll
doesn't have
be
a
more
spine.
than willing to listen to it, but try that.
Why are
framework.
there more
So,
people
Ms. Hilton?
watching
Yes,
me
Your Honor.
on Twitter than on YouTube?
Thank you, Your Honor. So first, I'll address the notice issue, Your Honor.
No rumble
We
today.
served notice for this particular testimony on May 23rd, 2024. Your Honor, we served notice.
They served notice 6 days before. They served the notice last Thursday. And this was yesterday on the 29th. So 6 days notice about something that the statute says handle pre-trial.
Based upon the line of inquiry that we are hearing regarding some of our witnesses, regarding the
There you go.
relationship
Now
between
there
Mr.
are equal
Williams
amounts
and
on
Mr.
YouTube
Donovan
as
Thomas
on Twitter.
Jr. at the time of his death. There have been a series of cross-examination questions, and I'll go specifically when Ms. Shawana Edmond was on the stand last week, I believe last Monday. There was a
Yeah, but that, Miss Hilton, that is still up to the jury to decide. Is it credible? Is it not credible? You don't need cumulative when you already had 3 or 4 people testifying about the exact same thing.
line of questioning from Mr. Steele regarding the fact that at the time of Donovan Thomas Jr.'s death, that Mr. Williams and Mr. Thomas Jr. were friends. And that has been a point made by Defendant Williams through his counsel on multiple occasions through multiple witnesses. And so what the state realized, especially after the inquiry with Ms. Edmond, that it was important for Mr. Donovan Thomas Sr., who had a different relationship with his son than what the mother had, to talk about the fact that at the time of Mr. Williams' death, they were not that friendly. What Mr. Thomas Sr. will testify to is that in the summer of 2014, all the way up probably through about September of 2014, there was a cordial, a good relationship between Mr. Williams, Jeffrey Williams, as well as Brian Birdman Williams. That over the course of the summer, there are some pictures that you have seen in which Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr. had went to both Miami and LA with Mr. Mr. Brian Williams. And it was a good relationship. However, in the fall of 2014, that relationship changed. And the reason or the catalyst for that change is that Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr. thought that
Sylvia.
Brian Birdman Williams was taking artists away from a record label called TIG, which is called Think It's a Game Records. Think It's a Game Records at the time was the record label that Rich Homie Quan belonged to, or the Quantas Lamar. And what Donovan Thomas Jr. began to see or observe, or what he thought, was that Birdman was trying to take Rich Homie Quan from Think It's a Game Records and bring them over to Cash Money Records. And so at that point in time, Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr. would have conversations with Rich Homie Quan about not going over to Cash Money, but staying with TIG Records. In the course of that, Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr. would have conversation with his father about the concerns that he had of Rich Homie Quan possibly going over to Cash Money and not staying with TIG. Why that is important, Your Honor, is because at the time, we believe that Jeffrey Williams either signed to Cash Money or had a management deal with Cash Money, but he had more of a relationship with Brian Birdman Williams and the Cash Money side of the house. And so there was some conflict with Rich Homie Quan.
Probable cause.
And so we believe that in the latter part of 2014, what Mr. Donovan Thomas Sr. was testified to is that his son decided to not have as much of a relationship with both Jeffrey Williams or Brian Birdman Williams. And so he began to distance himself from the two of them. There was a specific encounter that he remembers very vividly, which was a video shoot. I believe it was Mr. Jeffrey Williams' video shoot. And when Mr. Donovan Thomas Sr. and Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr. went to the video shoot, they saw Mr. Jeffrey Williams there, they saw Brian Williams there, and they saw another TIG artist there. However, the owner of TIG was unaware of this video shoot and was not present. At that moment, both of the Thomases left. And at that point, that's when really the tension or the frustration developed, and he did not want to deal with anything that was not TIG records. And so we're talking about October 2014, November 2014, later in the year, that there was this distancing between the two, which is opposite of what
it was over a record
we believe
deal.
that the defense is trying to purport that there was this great friendship in January 2015, because that was not the case. And so specifically, there are two conversations that Mr. Donovan Thomas Sr. remembers his son having with him. These were two face-to-face conversations, again, he believed it was fall of 2014. And specifically, his son came to him very concerned, thinking that Rich Homie Quan was going to leave TIG Records, that he expressed to his father that he was trying to show Rich Homie Quan everything, showing him the studio that they had built for him, and really trying to convince him to stay with TIG and not go over to Cash Money Records. And the reason why that is relevant, Your Honor, is we believe one of the theories of why this murder occurred is there was a desire to have Rich Homie Quan on Cash Money Records, and two people were preventing that from happening. Corey Lamar, who's the father of the Qantas Lamar, as well as Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr. And those two individuals were preventing that from occurring. And so these conversations that he was having is not specifically towards Jeffrey Williams, but specifically towards his concern with Brian Birdman trying to steal Rich Homie Quan from TIG and bring him over to Cash Money Records. As far as this having some guarantee of trustworthiness, that's why we believe that you need to hear from Mr. Thomas yourself. Generally, in these hearings, Your Honor, as you are aware, the court can assess credibility from the witness itself.
Okay, let's assume that I do that. How are you going to get over the confrontation clause?
Your Honor, this is not testimonial because confrontation.
I disagree with you.
Well, Your Honor,
it is testimonial.
It's not testimonial because testimonial evidence is evidence that's made directly to the police.
No,
this is not.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
I'll bring some case law, Your Honor, but testimonial evidence is evidence that is made in preparation for trial, generally to law enforcement.
Okay, but even if it's not testimonial, you still got a confrontation clause issue. How are the defendants going to?
But this is why this is a residual hearsay, Your Honor. Because
residual hearsay, if you're going to introduce it against the defendant, it's still got to pass the confrontation clause.
No, Your Honor, when we're talking about confrontation.
I disagree with you about that. It's got to pass the confrontation clause. In fact, there are. You all like to slight Carlson a fair bit. So let me go back to what Mr. Carlson says about the constitutional considerations. While much of the evidence offered under 807 will pass Sixth Amendment muster, cases state that if a hearsay statement is testimonial, confrontation clause prevents its admission at trial, even if it falls within the hearsay exception, unless the declarant statement is unavailable and the defendant's had a prior opportunity to cross-examine the declarant. So the issue you're still going to have is, well, is just general confrontation of this particular witness. And then also, I'm concerned about just the nexus in terms of what you're trying to get into at this point.
When you, I guess two things.
The nexus being that of what exactly Mr. Thomas is going to testify to. I mean, you laid out for me kind of a relationship driven, or I don't see the nexus. I'm having a hard time seeing that.
Which nexus, Your Honor, so I can be clear.
The nexus in terms of what does Mr. Thomas's statements about his son, because finally you boiled it down to there's two conversations in the fall of 2014 that you want to get into. Have you reduced those to writing?
Traces of a spine, and maybe his balls were dropping back.
Okay, Your Honor, it's in the summary on page 44 and 45 of Mike Sprinkle's supplemental report that was turned over in Discovery. In Discovery 1 back in July of 2022.
No, it doesn't matter.
No, you need to all print that because I don't have it. So you need to print it for me. But
even if it's in Discovery, you still need to bring it to the court's attention and you are actually going to use it.
You're telling me that Senior had conversations with Junior. Junior was concerned that basically there was some pilfering that may have gone on in terms of artists. But what does that have to do with Mr. Williams and any of the other defendants?
Sure, specifically Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams and Rich Homie Quan were part of that group called Rich Gang. You've heard about testimony about Rich Gang in here.
I have.
And so at that point, Rich Homie Quan was a part of TIG Records. He was not a part of Cash Money. So they were trying, but Mr. Williams was a part of Cash Money. So we have TIG, Rich Homie Quan. You have Mr. Williams either loosely associated or having some more affiliation with Cash Money than Rich Homie Quan. Birdman, who owns Cash Money, is trying to pull Rich Homie Quan over to Cash Money. That is an issue because Mr. Donovan Thomas is trying to keep Rich Homie Quan over to TIG. So there's some conflict, there's some tension there. At the end of the day, if Rich Homie Quan doesn't come over to Cash Money, they can't do everything that they need to do as far as albums, as far as the music, as far as any of those things. And so that can essentially affect, at least we can present that to the jury, what Mr. Williams can do at that time as far as his career, as far as what's going to happen with his career. And there's some tension and some conflict because Donovan is trying to keep him on one side and they are trying to pull him over to another side. And there's conflict and there's tension. And what Mr. Donovan Thomas expressed to his father is that he began distancing himself, not just from Birdman, but from Jeffrey Williams. The defense has continued to purport that at the time of January 2015, Mr. Donovan Thomas and Mr. Williams were great friends. That is not true.
Okay, but you've
So
also,
that's the nexus. So we have to be able to show that there's some conflict there.
You have already testified. You had 3 or 4 witnesses already making the same claims you now want Mr. Thomas Sr. to do. This is cumulative because now you should have started with Mr. Thomas and you should have brought this to the court's attention before trial. So that's 2 hurdles. Now you have 3 lesser believable witnesses who testify, and now with cumulative you're trying to bring in Mr. Thomas to make them more believable. That's not how you do testimonials. They have to be independently evaluated. And when you already have 3 or 4 witnesses, there's no need for a 4th. Hi, Dave. Want to join? I'll send you a link.
Do not believe that in January 2015, they were as close as the defense is trying to purport them to be.
that's the defendant's assertion.
That's the defense. And our assertion is that
That's
they're
the
not.
defendant's assertion, but you've also brought out the fact from numerous witnesses already that there was tension and beef between these particular parties.
Not between Donovan Thomas, though. People have talked about, but the person who can speak the best about it is Donovan Thomas Sr.
Then
because
you
he
should
had
have
direct
started with that
conversations
guy.
with his son about his son's feelings towards these parties at the time of ending in 2014 and early 2015.
All right.
And what we talked about in testimony is conflict between Lil Wayne and Mr. Williams, not specifically Donovan Thomas. What has been purported, at least the evidence that has come out, is that Donovan Thomas, the assertion that they were friendly at the time in January of 2015. And this is in direct
This is way
contradiction.
more
to
than the
it.
5 minutes.
And
the judge
even if
said
I,
they
even
had.
if it's not testimonial, what about the 403 consideration? It's
So-
certainly, because I do have to balance that if I do find it. So why would you think that this is not highly prejudicial, more than probative? Because, you also got,
So it's
I have to
cumulative.
consider that too.
Because Your Honor, the state has to prove motive,
Confrontation
and we have to
clause.
prove a reason why this occurred. What defense has purported in opening, what defense has purported.
Yeah, you have to prove it. But you already put a bunch of witnesses who made these claims. At some point, it gets cumulative. And that was about 2 months ago, I believe.
Throughout the entire trial, there's no reason why Mr. Williams will want to have him killed. There's no reason why YSL will want to have this individual killed, and the state has to be able to prove motive. We do not have to prove motive. However, there is a reason behind, or the state believes that there is a reason behind this senseless killing. And so the state can purport and give that information to the jury. They can choose to believe it, not believe it, but we have a theory of why this occurred.
Yeah, and in my opinion, so far, they have not proven that this was anything else than a drive-by shooting. We don't even know if Mr. Thomas was the primary target.
And there's nothing prejudicial about Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr., Sr. speaking about his son's feelings at the time of this murder. And the conversations that he had, he doesn't say,
Confrontation
my son
clause.
said, if I die tomorrow, it was Mr. Williams. That might be
Bias.
prejudicial, but it is Mr. Thomas's
Here's the thing, if Donovan Thomas Sr. somehow sees this, I understand completely. I would probably do the exact same thing. I would want to talk about your son's case, or if I were in your shoes, I would talk about my kid's case. But you have to also the due process. This is the hard part of doing law. Sometimes your testimony is just not enough. I know you want revenge for your son's senseless killing. I would too. But then the law, due process, and the Constitution and Bill of Rights puts hurdles in the way to guarantee a fair trial. And you shouldn't be mad at the moment on the defense, or on the judge or me. You should be mad at the prosecution for failing you so badly that they allowed this situation to happen. The prosecution knows damn well the rules. They could have called you as witness number one. They chose not to. And that is a bad mistake. That deprives you from the right to testify about your son. That's on the prosecution. Nobody else. Let's continue.
Conversation about his concern that Rich Homie Quan was going to go to another music label. There's nothing prejudicial about that statement to Mr. Williams, except for the fact that Mr. Donovan Thomas is telling his father, someone he has a close relationship with, someone who he talks to almost every day. This is the testimony that Donovan Thomas Sr. will give, is that my son came to me with a concern that someone he's mentoring, someone he has developed a relationship with, may leave this record label and go to another record label. There's nothing prejudicial to any of the defendants with that particular statement. So we do believe that there's nothing prejudicial about that statement in this. And I'll pause, but I'll look up the testimony. But again, Your Honor, I believe the testimonial will solely be if this was a statement being made for the purposes of trial, and it's not.
I still have to go undergo trustworthiness.
Yes, Your Honor.
Still have to go through even if I don't find it to be testimony, it still has to be balanced under 403.
Yes, Your Honor. And I take this in comparison. Many of the residual hearsay cases, Your Honor, are domestic violence cases.
Oh, that's what comes up.
That's what comes up. And
but ordinarily, those are a lot more tighter in the sense that you have interplay between, unfortunately, the decedent and the victim. And you also have third parties that are very much usually around, or unfortunately see those particular victim.
Yeah, when it comes to domestic violence cases, there are other evidence to corroborate the statements. This is not one of them. Now, this is just the dad who wants to talk about his son and the alleged statement his son gave. There are at least 2 steps missing here. At least.
Talks to on a regular basis.
But that is what's happening here, Your Honor. Mr. Donovan Thomas Sr. will say he talked to his son every day. He has a different vantage point. If you recall Ms. Edmonds' testimony, Ms. Edmonds knew her son, but Donovan Thomas Sr. went to video shoots with his son, went to events with his son in the music industry. So he had a very close relationship with his child, such that these conversations were very natural for them in comparison to Ms. Edmonds. Ms. Edmonds said, I knew certain things, but she didn't have as much detail. He spoke to his father more about what was happening on this music entertainment side. The father had been to video shoots. The father had, may or may not have been, I have to confirm, may have been in Miami when they did the lifestyle video. Mr. Donovan Thomas Sr. spoke to his son, was very involved in the fact that Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr. had created his own independent music label. Another one of his sons, Marquavius Curtis, was a part of that. So Mr. Donovan Thomas Sr. has a very more knowledge about this side of what Mr. Thomas was doing versus, say, Miss.
Do you have the statements? Did you find those? Yes. Can I see those?
Yes, Your Honor, permission to approach?
Yes. I'm just going to read them in the record so that we have them for consideration.
Okay, yes, Your Honor, it starts at the end of page 44 and turns over to page 45.
All right, your hand listed, Mr. Kearns.
Okay. Skip ahead, skip ahead, skip ahead.
The last thing is on page 44, Judge.
Okay,
This is
what am
way
I looking
longer
at to
than the
begin with?
5
This
minute
is, Mr. Sprinkles. What is it?
So Mr. Sprinkle, back in 2016.
Oh, Mr. Sprinkle. That's a name we haven't heard in a good while. Mr. Sprinkle, who, if you don't know, was the prosecutor assigned to this case way back when. And it was his decision, well, his with other, to drop the charges because there was simply not enough evidence against anybody that was suspect. Mr. Sprinkle on the stand when they did the Daubert hearing was really, really good. And I hope I can find that video. Then I will put it in the description below after this stream, because those Daubert hearings in itself are dynamite compared to the bore fest this trial has been on occasion. And yeah, I will actually make a separate separate playlist for just the Daubert hearings, because those, if you're on the fence about what's going on, why are they doing things, and why aren't they calling better witnesses, this has been continuous. The Daubert hearing, the so-called experts they wanted to proffer as experts, Jesus Christ, they are bad. But Mr. Sprinkles, he was good. He was one of the exceptions.
He met with met with Donovan Thomas Sr. About.
So this is a report from Mr. Sprinkle.
Correct. But
Okay, and where does it go from? Am I supposed to consider on August the 2nd, 2016?
Yeah, when you said you wanted to read, yes,
Yes.
on August 2nd, 2016.
Through what?
And then it goes all the way up to page 45. The last word is them.
Oh, okay.
Found it and shared it in the chat, but don't go over there just yet. Keep watching this, and then after, go back and watch Mr. ADA Sprinkle's testimony in the Daubert hearing. So yeah, those were fire. Let's skip ahead a bit.
Have you all broken out what exactly Mr. Thomas is going to, Senior is going to say? Because these particular statements that are contained within the August 2nd, 2016 recount of Mr. Sprinkle have listed a lot of hearsay. So do you have it broken down into what exactly he's going to say? Because I'm sure he's probably not going to say, stuff like there are disputes going on in the streets
Correct. The only.
or talk about stuff like that, because that certainly would be hearsay. Do you have something in particular that you've kind of distilled out that he's going to testify to?
Specifically, Your Honor, so he's going to talk about a number of things, not statements, but his understanding of different relationships. I think that's the foundation to get to these statements. The specific statements that we listed that would be hearsay would be the conversation he had with his son. I believe it was.
Okay, hold on. Let's.
Patty B asks, wait, so Mr. Sprinkles did not want to go ahead with these charges, so the fund prosecutors are willing to do it. Is that right? Somewhat. Not the shooting in itself. Well, he chose to not go ahead because there was simply no evidence. Then it has been laying dormant until now, when it is an underlying act under the RICO charge. And so they are not, I can't with a good conscience say they are prosecuting Donovan Thomas killing, because it's just an underlying act under the RICO charge, which takes away much of the evidentiary value of everything they are putting forward in this trial. Remember, everything you see here during this Donovan Thomas part of this trial, another ADA, not only once, but twice they chose to not bring that to trial. Twice. Because there was simply not enough evidence. Yeah, there are. Oh, it's count 2. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Valpal. Yeah, okay. So it's a separate count than the RICO shot. Damn, I've been doing this for over a year now, this trial. Things kind of blend together, but people like Valpal and others, they remind me. Thank you, chat. Thank you, Valpal. So yeah, this is a separate count in this trial. But everything they bring in here, twice the charges was dropped because there wasn't enough evidence.
Back up for a second. You have him talk about relationships. What relationships you have him talk about?
Sure, and I can pull it up here.
And then my next question is, does he have personal relationships or does he have a basis or foundation to talk about those?
Yes, he does. So he's going to talk about his
son. He's going to talk about his son
and his other children, because that is important. So Mr. Donovan Thomas has 5 children.
What about his other children that's important and relevant for this analysis?
So let me start with Donovan and Dontavius and Marquavius Curtis. Marquavius Curtis is also known as Greedy. He is a member of If Gang. Greedy shares a mother with Kelvin Watts, which is also known as Shell Cal. These are individuals that the state's theories that YSL has issues with. They are part of If Gang, Bird Gang. He also has a daughter by the name of Sequoia Cade.
What's her name?
Sequoia.
How do you spell that? That's from Ms. Weaver.
Sequoia. The last name Cade.
Cave.
Cade.
Yes, ma'am.
She has a child with Kelvin Treadwell, also known as OG Bentley. You've heard testimony about him as he was a part of the incident with Dexter Montgomery, the shooting in 2015, on April 12th of 2015.
Okay, so he can testify about this relationships with these children.
Correct.
Okay.
Then he's going to.
Why wouldn't that be cumulative already? Because we've heard that. Remember?
You haven't heard it with clarity. If you're talking about Miss Edmonds.
Clarity. I remembered it. So why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be cumulative? I'm just asking it because I'm sure Mr. Steele's going to ask you that same question in just a second. He's going to say it's cumulative of things that we've already testified to. So what's distinguishing about this?
Because when I heard what I believe some of the testimony that came out last week with Miss Edmond, that was not clear. I believe that there was a thought that Kelvin and Donovan were actually brothers. They are not. They share a brother.
But you all, through your examination, distinguished and pulled that out and clarified it. So
it was not, Your Honor. It was not distinguished that they are not actually blood related.
Well, you all being the state asked a lot of clarification questions because it was kind of confusing to begin with, and you all kind of kind of bear that out. So, I mean, that's from my memory of just listening to the testimony. So what's still kind of, I would say, unclear at this point.
So in addition to that, I think the state and the court sees that clarity of that relationship differently, but if the court believes that it was clear, we can move on. The next portion of that is Donovan Thomas, his aspect of the music industry, what he was doing in the music industry, the fact that he had his own entertainment label, that testimony has not come out.
Okay, that hasn't come out yet. I would agree with that. In terms of so his dad's going to testify about I guess the development of his business and what he was doing.
Correct. That under his label was his brother initially, which was Greedy.
Okay.
Also about certain individuals, Gervin Fly Henry.
Who, I'm sorry?
Gervin Fly Henry.
Gervin?
Gervin, G-I-R-V-I-N.
Okay.
Henry, who is the owner of TIG Records. The father has knowledge of the beginning of that relationship, how that relationship started, when that relationship started, what Mr. Donovan's role was as far as securing artists for that label. Specifically, he brought Rayshawn Bennett to TIG Records. That's the person also known as Lucci. So that testimony has not come out yet.
No. Okay. All right.
In addition to that, Your Honor, he can talk more specifically about his son's relationship with the Quantes Lamar. DeQuantes Lamar, DeQuantes, also known as Rich Homie Quan. Again, he can speak to Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr.'s relationship with Rayshawn Lucci Bennett. That's going to be relevant because testimony will be forthcoming that Rayshawn Lucci Bennett's mother's home was shot up after Donovan Thomas was murdered. Mr. Donovan Thomas can also speak about, again, the relationship between Donovan Thomas Jr. and Mr. Jeffrey Williams from his observations. He'll also be able to speak about the relationship between Brian Birdman Williams and Donovan Thomas Jr.
Patty B asked Nicholas, has there ever been a time that this just had not let something that the prosecution wanted in because I can't think of? He hasn't let in a search warrant on Mr. Williams' home. That is completely excluded. And there's a bunch of other things, but I assume sooner or later the prosecution will want to have that in, regardless of the judge's prior rulings, because Judge Glanville has no spine and is perfectly okay with changing his ruling on the spot, just if the Miss Love or Miss Hilton nags enough about it, he might change his mind, and that is why they do it.
Again, what I just talked to the court about as far as the summer of 2014, what was happening.
Well, go back to Brian Birdman Williams and Donovan Thomas Jr. Is that what you said?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
And he's really searching now for every
what I spoke
possible
about earlier,
way
Your Honor, Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr. can talk about what was happening in the summer of 2014. He will testify that the relationship between Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr. and Mr. Jeffrey Williams, as well as Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr. and Mr. Brian Birdman Williams, was cordial, was good, that, you know, Mr. Donovan went to video shoots and things were good. He will testify to that. But he will also testify that in the fall of 2014, that began to change specifically for Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr.
Okay.
And then that is, again, the conversation that I am speaking of, the hearsay conversation. It's sometime around, again, October or November is the conversation that I talked about where Donovan Thomas Jr. expressing his father some concern about Rich Homie Quan leaving.
Yeah, this is just word salad because the judge clearly already stated cumulative, confrontation clause, or prejudicial towards probative. Those three are enough for him to make a ruling right then and there, no matter what the prosecution says. But he allows them to bring out whatever's, just so he can find that little needle or that little thread to make a ruling, however vague that is.
And then the second conversation, Your Honor,
Okay, but and you said that, the two conversations, but what I would like to see is, or something, or hear, is what exactly those conversations were. I think there's some predicate stuff that maybe, that's from the court's perspective, maybe relevant, to here, to put certain things in context. But in order for me to make some further determinations, you would probably need to reduce exactly what you're trying to get Mr. Thomas Senior to say, because that would be important.
is it possible he is prepared? We were prepared to bring him in to
Why
testify
is it
because
important?
for the court, my experiences in residual hearsay motions, that witness will come and testify, so you can hear directly from his mouth what the conversation is. So I don't write something
Okay.
down.
Okay,
So
well,
he's prepared to come tomorrow morning. We
all
can
right.
make him
He's
available.
Okay.
peddling.
all right. Thank you. I've given you more than 5 minutes, probably about 30.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Steele?
Yeah. You said 5 minutes and you let her nag you for 30, 40 minutes because you have no spine. You had the beginnings, the inklings, a scintilla of spine about 45 minutes ago. But now, no. You give up your spine all the time. And with that, I was asked to do something that I don't usually do. It is hey folks, this channel is kept afloat by memberships, the occasional super chat, or to PayPal. It's $3 a month to become a member, and you get access to all my members only things. And it is a lot just for you if you choose to become a member. The occasional super chat, not necessary, but very welcome, especially since I'm going to the United States in August, where I will be visiting Houston, New Orleans, Atlanta, Delphi, Indiana, and then finally Detroit. So I will be doing a road trip from August 7 to August 24. And in Atlanta, I will try to attend the actual trial, unless Fannie Willis sees me and throws me in jail. But if she does, I have content for months. If I will be let go. So, if you wouldn't mind, and if you have the means, I would deeply appreciate if you helped sponsoring this channel. Thank you. That was... All right, let's continue. Let's see what Mr. Steele has to say. Or you can buy my merch. You can have this mug yourself.
That's okay. Take your time, sir. Ms. Hilton and Ms. Love, can you all send Ms. Weaver the pages from the case supplemental report, pages 44 and 45, for purposes of the motion? No, okay, yes, that's fine, when you get it. Oh, it's up now, okay. You know, it's up now, we have it now. Okay, so I'm gonna give you all this back, so you can have it. But if you all could send the court, yes, please make it the next court's exhibit, Christina, thank you. All right, sir, I'm listening.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Good afternoon, everyone. Your Honor, I ask you to not permit any statements under OCGA section 24-8-807 for the following 4 reasons. First of all, the notice itself is late. I don't have any, I'm going to hear for the first time, when you hear for the first time, I guess tomorrow, what the exact statements are. That violates the law, and that is cited. And I put all this in my motion or response for Mr. Williams.
Do you have a copy of that, sir?
I could email it to you if I don't have a hard
Let
copy.
me see if you emailed it to all of us?
Yes, on Friday, this past Friday.
All right, so I have your response. So what are you inviting me to look at?
Well, the first paragraph, in paragraph 2 actually, cites Carter and Brooks. And OCGA section 24-8-807, Georgia courts have adopted the 11th Circuit, and they call it the last resort. That's a quote unquote attempt by a party to introduce hearsay evidence and should be used, and this is a quote from the cases, very rarely, and only in exceptional circumstances, and only when there exists certain exceptional guarantees of trustworthiness and high degrees of probativeness and necessity. So I don't believe that in this case, the state can meet that requirement. In addition to that, in paragraph 3, Your Honor, under Snyderman, SNEIDERMAN versus state, that's 336 Georgia Appeal 153, that's in footnote 7, 784 Southeast 2D 18, it's all in my motion, my response, 2016, it was overruled on other grounds. But specifically, the state should have given this notice before trial. They did not. And they're supposed to give exactly what you're asking for now. What are the statements? They did not do that. They never said before their Thursday filing of last week that they're seeking to admit this, these statements under 24-8-807. So that has been violated. The next one is the statute itself. It's in paragraph 4. OCGA section 24-8-807 requires, among other portions of the test, that the hearsay statement is more probative on the point for which is offered than any other evidence which the proponent can procure through other reasonable efforts. The proponent in this case is the state of Georgia. And Your Honor, the way I understood what you were just told, we're talking about that Rich Homie Quan was trying to be led away from TGI Studios record label to go over to Cash Money Record. TGI Studios is owned by a gentleman, as the Honorable Ms. Hilton said, named Girvin, G-I-R-V-E-N, may be wrong, Henry, like the King Henry. He's on the state's witness list. He's available. They gave me a phone number for him. Rich Homie Quan is named Mr. Lamar. DeQuantis Lamar is spelled earlier. He's on the state's witness list for this series of witnesses. Mr. Brian Birdman Williams is on the state's witness list. So it is hard to swallow that the state passes the statute itself in 807 that states that the state can get this information, cannot get this information from someone else with reasonable efforts. What they're saying is that Rich Homie Quan is being courted by 2 different record labels. Well, they have the record label people right here and Rich Homie Quan, or excuse me, Mr. Lamar, his performer known as Rich Homie Quan. So I asked you for all of that, for all those reasons so far, to deny their motion. In addition, they wanted to explain about a relationship between, through hearsay, between Donovan Thomas Jr., God forbid, deceased, and Rashawn Bennett. Rashawn Bennett is on the state's witness list. He already pled guilty in another case in this courthouse, and there's no reason that he can't be a witness in this case. So again, the state has other reasonable alternatives through reasonable efforts. And then, Your Honor, it's paragraph 5 is what they put forth, they being the state of Georgia, in the Thursday late notice. And they say what the supposed statements are, and they really don't give very good statements. So I guess tomorrow is going to be the real notice. So I'm objecting to the late notice. Then in paragraph 6 of our response, Your Honor, Mr. Williams' response, this is a new case. It was decided May 15, 2024, but it's not new law, but it just happened to be here. And it's Hall, H-A-L-L versus state, and I cited it. It's too new. So the case number is A is in Elisa Alpha Appeal. 24A is in Elisa Alpha Appeal 0568. And it was decided May 15, 2024. And what they're talking about, the courts are saying that under 24-8-807, it's supposed to be so rarely used, and there has to be such circumstances which give guarantees of trustworthiness that it's the equivalent, Your Honor. You're gonna have to find this as equivalent to either a cross-examined former testimony or statements under a belief of impending death or statements against interest or statements of personal or family history. None of that is here. So for all those reasons, I ask you to, right now, without even hearing from Mr. Thomas tomorrow morning, that the state just utterly failed the test. You know, the law gives us our rules, whether we like them or not. The law gives us our rules, and the state here did not give proper notice. I heard your concerns at the beginning, Your Honor. You said the first one was notice The second one is guarantees the trustworthiness and inherent bias. I've answered those two, I believe. The next one is what is said exactly. That's part of the notice. I don't know. The next one is there's no cross-examination of deceased, which triggers confrontation clause. And you're right. And Mr. Hilton's right. I agree with Ms. Hilton that testimonial evidence is evidence that is going to be used for a prosecution, just like you did in the Pitts case. But
But in this
here-
case, the statements are found in Mr. Sprinkle's report, which is a prosecutor's report made for the purposes of prosecution.
And also, we can't cross-examine the deceased. So I'm stuck with what the father who, and I feel terrible for the man. I mean, everyone feels nothing but sympathy for that family. I mean, we saw the video. I mean, it's outrageous. But how do we get a fair trial by cross-examining the father on statements made by the deceased, supposedly made when the real witnesses are here anyway? So I can't get over the confrontation clause issue. We should have the right to cross-examine Mr. Gervin, Mr. Bennett, Mr. Lamar, Mr. Birdman, Brian Birdman Williams. And then you asked about cumulative, because the beef was already testified to. And the state responded that no, not really. And I challenge that because I sit here attentive every day and I go back and I review notes every single day. Detective Gaither said that this beef, that's what it's been called, goes back to October of 2014. Detective Dennis said this beef goes back to 2014. Over strenuous objections, this honorable court allowed, based upon your investigation, witness after witness say, we had a shooting here, we had a drive-by here. This is the victim and this is the person. In this case, people from YSL were the victim. Mr. Shannon Stillwell was a victim. The person next to him got killed. In this case, the victim was IF people and the defendants are people who are associated with YSL. So, Your Honor, I will answer any of your questions, but I am objecting under the law. And if the state really wanted this to come in, they should have, just done what you tell us to do, what everyone tells us to do, just follow the rules. And they've all been broken and we're getting noticed during trial. And I don't think that that's something that the courts overlook. I mean, we will obviously go with whatever you say, but to me, there are real witnesses here who can testify. If Donovan Thomas was concerned that Rich Homie Quan is getting courted by Birdman Williams, Rich Homie Quan is a better witness than Donovan Thomas's father. If Rich Homie Quan is concerned that Jeffrey Williams is trying to get him over to Cash Money Records, Rich Homie Quan is a better witness than the father of Donovan Thomas Jr. Those are my...
My questions being is I think he can...
I wanted to show this. Hello, GD. Everybody say hello to GD, my first and best moderator. Says, I keep giggling at the fact that the whitest guy on the planet is the only person covering this trial. Yeah. This is the result of 1,000 years of Scandinavian inbreeding. You don't get much whiter than this guy. Now, there are other people covering this trial. You have infamous Sylvia, who you really should go up, or is it not infamous? Sylvia. She's in a courtroom as well at times. So I would suggest that you subscribe to her as well. And subscribe to me and definitely her. But the rest of the people who started out had just fallen out. Maybe there are videos out there once in a while, but actual coverage of this trial, it's me and Sylvia. We are hanging in there. So, yeah. And I said this in August of last year. I will cover this trial from gavel to gavel. Do I regret it? Yes, somewhat, but I made a promise to you guys that I will cover this trial from gavel to gavel, and I will.
They're trying to get Senior, the father of Donovan, to testify about the relationship between his children and that. I have some, I believe that's been testified to, but I think he could probably give some background and fill in some the full extent of that particular relationship between his children and those folks. I guess my second thing is with Donovan Thomas and Mr. Garvin Henry. Is Mr. Henry available as a witness?
Yes. I've spoken with him. The state has him on their witness
We have
list. I have good information, contact information for him. The state gave me the contact information that I have.
And Mr. DeQuintus Lamar, who's I get Rich Homie Quan State James, is he available? Is he on?
He's already been subpoenaed. The state filed a subpoena. It came up on whatever we get. We get a copy of the.
What about Rashawn Bennett?
He's unfortunately the most available because he's in your custody, not your custody. He's in the custody of the state of Georgia prison system.
Okay.
So a production order can get him here.
All right. And Brian Birdman Williams.
He's on the state's witness list. I've spoken with him as well. He's available.
Okay. All right.
He's out of state,
Okay.
but he's available. He lives in the state of, I'm not really sure actually. It's either Louisiana, Florida, or I'm not sure. I don't want to speak for where the gentleman is, but he's available.
All right. Okay. Yes, Mr. Steele, thank you.
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay.
So I want to briefly respond to three specific portions. I heard Mr. Steele say, well, it's a confrontation clause. I believe the court said, well, that's a statement made to Mr. Sprinkle. The statement that we are looking to, Your Honor, is not the statement that Mr. Donovan Thomas Sr. told Mr. Sprinkle. It is what the declarant, who was a deceased individual, spoke to his father. And I want to point the court specifically to.
Well, then it goes away from statement for a trial. Then it goes to that. So you can't both use Mr. Sprinkle's report as a sword and a shield. It's either or, and you have to choose. And both have hurdles you really shouldn't be able to overcome.
Rivers v. State, which is 77 Federal 3rd 1306, which is an 11th Circuit 2015 case. Sure, Rivers v. State, or River v. United States, excuse me, 777 Federal 3rd 1306
that's 2015.
at Penn site 1313.
The defense just quoted 2024.
Okay.
And what that says, Rule 807 analysis must consider whether the statements have guarantees of trustworthiness given the circumstances under which they were made. We examine the trustworthiness of the declarant who originally made the statement, not the trustworthiness of the witness reciting the statement.
Okay.
So again, we're looking not to what Mr. Donovan Thomas Sr. told Mike Sprinkle, but what did Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr. tell his father? And the reason why Rich Homie Quan, Gervin Fly Henry, and Birdman are not the individuals to speak to that is because they don't have the same relationship that Donovan Thomas Jr. has with his father. And so when we're looking at the case analysis, what you're talking about as far as trustworthiness is what is the relationship between the declarant and the person who's going to come and tell the court or the jury what the statement was. So Rich Homie Quan does not have the same level of a relationship that Mr. Donovan Thomas Jr. had with his father.
J. Shields D. I watched 2 lawyers and 1 streetwise reporters on this. You guys are all good and on the same page with this case, which helps me know this case is faked or trumped up. My theory, and I believe this is absolutely correct, is that Fannie Willis, when she went into office as a district attorney, that wasn't her final goal. Her goal was to become the next Attorney General of Georgia. And you don't get there through home invasions, through ordinary cases. You get there through RICO cases. So she has spent tens of millions on 5 RICO cases throughout her DA-ness because she wanted to be the next Attorney General. Now, not so much, because we found out that she is a whore who, well, she's a very bad one because she actually had to pay Nathan Wade to do her. But there's so much corruption, and I know the previous DA wasn't the good one, but Fannie Willis is as corrupt as they come. And she lied in church on a Martin Luther King sermon. She stood up in front of the congregation and lied in front of God and everyone. If you're able to do that, you shouldn't be holding any office if you're prepared to lie to God in church. But that is my theory. She wanted to become the next Attorney General, and she's using taxpayers' money to get there to enrich herself.
spoke to his father every day. He didn't speak to Rich Homie Quan every day. He spoke to his father every day. He didn't speak to Gervin Fly Henry every day. He didn't speak to Birdman every day. So when you're looking at determining the trustworthiness, it is a trustworthiness of who the declarant is speaking to. And specifically, I want to cite to the case that Mr. Steele actually cited in his motion, which is the Hall v. State case, Your Honor. And specifically, on pen site 15 of that particular opinion, there's two cases that the court cites. One is Ash v. State, which said that statements had sufficient guarantee of trustworthiness where the witness and declarant had a close relationship and talked to each other daily. That is the distinction as to why Birdman, Rich Homie Quan, Lucci, and Gervin Fly Henry cannot come in here to speak to the jury about what Donovan Thomas Jr. said to his father. They had a very different relationship, Your Honor.
Hey, Dave.
Those individuals can speak about their own relationship during this time with Jeffrey Williams. They can speak to their own relationship as it relates to the Consul Mark can talk about his own feelings about deciding where to go, but he cannot speak to what Donovan Thomas said about what Donovan Thomas thought in his conversation with his father.
This is just word salad, Miss Hilton.
I'm sure that the defense would object if we try to bring in hearsay statements to Rich Homie Quan about Donovan Thomas Jr. And then second and finally, Your Honor, Mr. Steele testified, or not testified, just argued that there has been testimony about the beef between YSL and If Gang. That's very general. What we are talking about, again, is very specific, in which Mr. Williams, through his counsel, has asserted that in January 2015, Mr. Williams and Donovan Thomas had a very close relationship or were very friendly.
No. He cross-examined your witnesses with facts that you yourself had in discovery. The photos, everything. The Instagram posts. You provided the defense with that evidence. Thank you, Jim Cox. Jim Cox just made a good decision. He became a member. And welcome to the Viking crew. You now have access to all my members-only content. And, Jim Cox, you're a good person. Jim Cox gifted 10 memberships to Patty B, LaShawn, Dave Umby, Lady Star, Sweet P 777, Fat Grandma, Catherine, Dead Ranger, and Patty G. Welcome all people to the Viking crew. You now have access to all my members-only content. Thank you so much, Jim Cox. You are a good person. Thank you.
This testimony, we believe, will show opposite of that in January 2015, they were not as close as Mr. As they have been purporting during their cross-examination of many of the state's witnesses.
Dave, you can't pronounce name if your life depended on it.
Sure, Ash v. State.
Hey, yes, Patty, you got your emojis back.
Okay.
Hey, reform convict in the house. What are we going to call our gang? Oh, we already have. And we are the Mr. Jingle's Viking Thugs. Well, you see it down here. We are all belonging to Mr. Jingle's Viking Thugs. And while we're at it, here's Mr. Jingles. Here is our supreme leader, Mr. Jingles. Look how happy he is when I do this. Ow, 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 ow. Skip ahead. Yeah, and now the judge is going out, and let's see what he says. let's see if he makes the correct decision, so we can get on to today's testimony with Mr. Sammy Davis, who actually witnessed the drive-by shooting and the death of Mr. Thomas. Ahead. Not the world of doom. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. World of doom. Stop it. There. Skipping ahead. Oh, for Come on. Get the sound up. Come on. Reform convict says, if I was on this jury, I'd wander in traffic a lot.
The synopsis of it, but I think the actual part of the recording, actually, I believe is the actual statement.
The judge had all the facts he needed
Yes,
before they
page
started
24
talking.
and 45, and then the actual recording is about 8 minutes long in discovery.
Yeah, look, this trial is a joke, Josie Kid. And it's expensive. We are talking about this. If they go to the end of the year, this is a $10 million trial. This trial alone. $10 million of taxpayers' money. This is what your taxpayer, this is why you pay taxes in Fulton County for this pile of garbage.
Is yours 140 pages?
I will post a new Discord link on for members only on my community section on YouTube.
So you look at the one else.
Yeah, all taxpayers, as Dave points out, they actually got federal funding also. Millions in federal funding to clear the docket of the pandemic cases. And using it for RICO trials. There are still tens and thousands of cases in the docket that are still. There are people in Fulton County jails that have been there unindicted for over a year. You think about that. Those are presumed innocent until a court of law says otherwise. Not the world of doom. Stop it. Stop it. Oh, it's Discord that is. I will post a new Discord link after this stream.
Okay, I see. I think.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Stop it. Skip ahead a good chunk. Still nothing. Jesus Christ. Come on. Why didn't I timestamp this? Well, he made a statement today at the beginning of today's trial. So we will skip to that. Let's see here.
Wise, please. All right, thank you, Sergeant Brown. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. All right, state, call your next witness.
Your Honor, at this time, the state
Wait.
now calls to the stand Mr. Derek Wise.
Summon Mr. Wise, please.
What? Oh. There are portions.
Mr. Wise, good afternoon, sir.
Okay. There are portions missing from the law and C word. Jesus Christ. Well, what happened? As you might imagine, Mr. Glanville, because I almost always refuse to call him judge anymore, found a case that at least made it possible for the prosecution to call Senior as a witness, and then they will go from there. Which means that this judge just overruled dozens of statutes regarding this kind of testimony. Why? Because he's a spineless, gutless coward. You could call him a fucktwat. Oh, I'm sorry, YouTubes. I meant four-quad. It's the accent. When I say four-quad, it sometimes sounds like something completely different. I mean four-quad and nothing else. Okay, YouTubes? Okay, yeah, good. Oh. All right. Let's move on with today. With Mr. Sammy Davis, a witness who actually was interesting. He found
Once you
another
get the witness
2024
stand, if you
case.
be so kind to turn and face Sergeant Brown and be sworn as a witness, please, sir.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony and/or statements you're about to give will be the truth?
No.
the truth?
No. That's not him. Hold on. What the actual F? Why is that portion gone? Law and C-word, you absolute piece of... Why do you remove the things? Sorry, folks. Let's go to 11 Alive. There you go. Sadly, you don't get the
I'll
transcript.
also include his second response. From the 30th.
All right, here we go. Yep. This is the 11 Alive. They don't ruin the pig. Okay, now we can hear the judge talk about that thing. Yeah, Fox 5 has the AM portion. 11 Alive is a smaller channel, and I like to support up and coming news channels and stuff like that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're on the record formally in the matter of the state of Georgia versus Cleef Adams et al. In 22 SC 183 572. Go ahead and take roll for the morning. Let's see,
Roll
Mr.
call.
Steele. All right. Mr. Nichols. Okay, Mr. Yahelskins and you? Okay.
All right. Now let's listen to the judge making his statement.
Receipt of email sent on Wednesday, the 29th of May at 9:54 p.m., which gives the PowerPoint of Dr. Henninger, which I'll include as the next court exhibit in order. I've also had an opportunity, I will also include
How's the
Mr.
sound? Please
Steele's
tell me.
response from the 30th of May at 7:14 a.m. And I'll also include his second response of at 10:46 a.m. Let me deal with a couple of issues out of it. Mr. Steele, I've had an opportunity, and Ms. Hilton, I've had an opportunity to consider the issue of the autopsy photos.
No.
Mr. Steele in particular.
Okay. Autopsy photos. They also had a beef about.
Objects to 311 Yankee, which is a photograph.
Yeah. The prosecution wants to show autopsy photos. And the defense objected to one of them. And the judge forked it and allows it over.
The extent of the injury from in the court's estimation, and I'm sure the medical examiner will talk about the projectile that went through that kidney. I've had an opportunity to take a look at that particular issue in terms of the photograph that's been objected to, autopsy photographs in general. I've taken a look at Salverson, SAL.
This is one of the things that I really don't get with today's trials. On Saturdays, I do serial killer Saturday with those trials from back in the day. They didn't need autopsy photos. They had the medical examiner with a diagram of a body who could perfectly explain what happened. The only reason to use autopsy photos is to people get angry, and when they get angry, they blame the defendant. And somehow, this is now the standard.
314 Note 2, discussing autopsy photos. And I've also had a chance to take a look at a more recent case, Baker versus the state, which is 2024 Westlaw 2738174. Again.
Okay, let's skip ahead. Yeah, this is me. One of my mistakes. He referred it forward. So we will see probably when they call Mr. Thomas, then they will do it.
Members of the jury, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, all right.
Call Mr. Sammy Davis.
All right, summon Mr. Sammy Davis, please.
Sammy Davis. Now this, I have to play in normal speed.
Mr. Davis, good morning, sir. Sir, if you can please approach the witness stand here. Once you get there, if you'd be so kind and turn and face Sergeant Brown and be sworn as a witness before you sit down, sir.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony in our statement you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Have a seat. Get just to the microphone. State your first and last name with the spelling of both for the courts.
All right. Sammy Davis. We'll be with SAMMY Davis, DAVIS.
All right.
First of all, now I like this guy. I really do. He had great testimony. I don't know what he came dressed in court, because that shirt is 3 or 4 sizes too big. So somebody had to give it to him. Somebody had to. I assume it is one of the prosecution's team or maybe one of the defense team. I don't know. But I had some suggestions what he might have come to dressed in when I posted this on Twitter. Here's the main suggestion. Oh. Yeah, but no, probably not. But whatever he came dressed in, somebody gave him that shirt, and yeah, that's not his size.
Pull yourself up as close to the microphone as you can, Mr. Davis.
All right.
Wonderful. All right, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Davis.
Come on, sir.
All right, where are you from?
I'm from Atlanta.
Okay. And what part of Atlanta are you from?
I'm really from the east side, but I was living on the west side for a substantial amount of years as well.
Okay. So I'm going to do something so that you can be heard clearly.
All right.
You can just take your time for Madam Court Reporter, as I'm trying to do today.
All right.
Maybe the prosecutor could find a microphone as well.
Where do you live today?
I live on McDaniel Street.
How old are you?
I'm 59 years old, sir.
You have any children?
Yes, 42 and 43.
And when you say 42, 43, is that their ages?
Yes.
What do you do for work?
I detail cars and also I park cars as well.
Were you doing that type of work in 2015?
Yes, sir.
And how much were you charging to wash and park cars in 2015?
$20 car.
Still doing that price today?
Yes, it all depends. It all depends what kind of car it is. The exotic car, I go up a little bit.
I got you.
Yeah.
So where about would you wash cars at that time in 2018?
I'll be right there in the parking lot right there by on McDaniel Street, right by the barber shop. Next time to the barber.
Okay. And when you say the barbershop, what barbershops are you talking
So I've been unlimited and A&M.
I'm gonna approach you with some water. I hear you.
Yeah. First part, just basic facts. Now, what I want you all to listen to is the later part of his testimony. He's just talking about, does he know about what is the address of the barbershop? Can you point it out? And yes, you can. So let's start here for a bit.
So you know
If you scoot back up to the mic,
I'm just we're talking about the act of that moment. You know, the diabolical and the evil stuff that was happening. So around by that time, you know, I forgot to shoot and breathe with the barbershop, you know. So that when I saw some things go down.
What is it?
What did you see go down?
Working
When I
at
saw
Star Wars,
car come
no
down,
deity. I have no idea.
How I came out of the sunroof. When it came out of the sunroof, that when it all broke loose.
What broke loose?
Fire, gunplay.
Gunfire.
Yeah.
And I want to put back up the last week's exhibit.
Which was?
Excuse me, Your Honor. That should have been my sincere apologies. Your Honor. That should be 14.
All right, thank you.
Is the sound okay? Just tell me
And,
if I need to do something
when you
more.
say
I
that
have it
you
boosted
always
already.
broke loose, as you say, you use your words. Do you see where on this state's exhibit, which is state's exhibit 14 Yankee, where Nut would have been standing?
Yeah, they were standing around. He was coming. He was coming out of the barbershop.
Out of which barbershop?
I had limited.
Okay.
He was coming out of the rail. When he coming out of the rail, that when the car stopped here and came out of the sunroof. You know, bullet went flying everywhere, all in the barbershop. So a couple of guys got hit by his car on the back. They was on this side. On the side, he got hit. Yeah.
Now, I want to ask you a couple of questions with respect to what you just described, and we're going to break some of that down. On which side of the vehicle was Nut on the left side or the right side of the vehicle?
On the driver's side.
Okay, on the right side.
Mm-hmm.
And on what side were the other individuals?
On the passenger side over here.
Okay.
There's two of them.
Okay, go ahead, finish what you said.
It was two guys, yeah.
Okay, who were those two guys? Do you know?
One guy named Reggie, and we called another guy Tiger. I know Reggie got hit in the side, then Tiger got hit in the leg.
Was the car that,
Diogo Sampaio asked Nick, is it good for the state or for the defense? He didn't move the needle for me at all, because even though he talks very good about the incident, he really has nothing to add to why are the defendants in this trial connected to this. And we will get there later on, because the prosecution tries to find the connection. Doesn't really succeed, but we will get there. We will get there. Thank you for your question.
can you recall the color of the car?
I can't recollect, man. Can't recollect the color none of that, man.
If I show you, just to bring it on,
Sure.
Okay.
Now, I would like to play this in 1.5,
Let's dial back to.
but we need to hear
to
Mr.
something you said earlier.
Davis.
When the vehicle that came down the street and fired the shots that you just described, it did that. Where were you?
I was right
And
by.
if you will, I'm gonna
Hey,
give
Sylvia.
you
Yeah, we will get there
this
eventually.
wooden pointer. And I'm gonna hand it to you. And if the court will allow, I'll ask Your Honor if he can step down just briefly to direct the jury with this pointer.
He may step down and illustrate assessment for the jury.
I'm gonna hand you this,
All right.
and I want you to be careful because there's a step here. And if you slide back,
All right.
yes, sir. And you can come on down as the court has allowed.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Come
Sorry,
on.
Helen.
Yes, sir. All right. And right here.
We-
right here.
Okay.
Actually,
We
seems like
can't
you might need a
because
step.
11 Alive doesn't have them.
I want with that pointer,
I will
can you
check
please
if,
show the ladies and
Fox 5
gentlemen
have
of the jury where you were standing when Mr. Thomas was shot?
I was standing right here by the back, the car back. I mean, that's the car back, in Texaco, the vacuum when you clean
Okay.
the back.
All right.
Right there. Next side, next to it.
Okay, and using the wooden pointer
No,
that you
Fox
have,
5 Atlanta
can you
doesn't
show
have
the
closed
ladies and
captions
gentlemen
either.
of the jury where
And-
Mr. Thomas was standing?
Law and Seaward apparently deleted their morning part of this trial.
Coming down.
Okay.
The barbershop, coming out the barbershop down with it.
Is it fair to say that he was at or near that fire hydrant that this wooden pointer is?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And can you use that same wooden pointer now that you're up to point out where the other two individuals were that you say were shot that evening?
On this side.
Okay. All right. You may reclaim your seat.
All right.
But hold on to that wooden pointer.
All right.
We're gonna use it again.
All right.
All right. I want to republish State's Exhibit 293 Yankee. And I want to move forward to the timestamp of 6:20. Okay, Mr. Davis, I'm gonna have you rise once again. And again, watch your step there, and stay on this ledge. I want you, for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, to show where you would have been standing, if you can, based on where your position, using the wooden pointer, where you would have been standing when you saw the vehicle come down and fire the shots. Standing near, what is that you're pointing at?
So right back. Vacuum.
A vacuum. Okay. All right. And where you were standing, were you able to have a clear line of sight as to what happened?
Right.
All right. You may reclaim your seat. I want to keep that exhibit up just for a moment. Turning to the screen to your left. Do you see McDaniel Street?
Yes.
Okay. And I want to ask you, was that barbershop that you see, that structure that appears to be orange, closer to the back, vacuums, as you described. Is that hair unlimited?
Right.
And was it that color in 2015?
In 2015, I know he had painted it. I think it was green or something like that.
Can you say that again? You said it was green?
I think it was green.
Okay, all right. And just keep in mind that the mic.
Because I know after, another incident happened, and by then, at the time, I know he stayed kept for a while, but I think he painted another color.
Okay.
So, yeah. Because he didn't want to identify that with what went on at the shop.
The vehicle that you saw the shots come from, can you say whether the vehicle was new or old?
It was old. It wasn't a new model car. It was an old model.
Were you able to see any persons inside of the vehicle other than the person that came up through the sunroof?
Not really.
Okay. Were you able to tell about how many people would you say were in it? Based on
I know it was two of them.
at a minimum?
It had to be. Because somebody had to drive while the person come out of the sunroof.
Okay. Was there ever a time that you saw the front passenger of the vehicle?
Not really.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
No, Your Honor. That's a different question.
Objection, Your Honor, ask and answer.
I stand the objection.
This is a brief indulgence, Your Honor. I'm sorry. Can you describe the rate of speed that the vehicle was traveling before it got to the front of Hair Unlimited Barbershop?
It wasn't real fast, because you come down McDaniel Street. So, I mean, it was fast enough. It was like it was time.
Okay. I'm gonna take this back from you just for the time being and put it in front of you so you can be heard because it's kind of covering your mouth. Okay?
Right.
And during the shooting, did the vehicle stop?
You had to stop right by the barber shop.
Okay. And when you say the barbershop, are we still talking about Hair Unlimited?
Right.
Okay. And after was there a time that the shooting concluded?
I just fired the shot and went on down McDaniel Street, hit a right on the other side drive.
Okay. Excuse me. Just a moment. Would you say this, how long would you say the shooting lasted?
About a minute so, because about a good minute. It was fired.
When you say a minute, are you saying that as a way to say a few seconds or?
Yeah, it was a little.
Wait.
It was good.
Davis, if there's an objection, just stop talking and let me rule on, okay? All right, I'm gonna sustain the objection. That's the lead. You can rephrase.
Sure thing, Your Honor. I'll move on, Your Honor. What, if anything, did you do when those shots were being fired?
What did I do then? What you asking?
Excuse me, yes, what, if anything, did you do when you heard the shots fired?
Well, when the shot was fired, we looked it up. So I hit the ground, you know.
Remember, this is his testimony now. He heard the shots, he hit the ground. After this, he will say, then he ran to the scene and tried to help. Or something of that sort. And in an interview with the cops, he claimed to have seen the person in the passenger seat, which he cannot have done if he was way over there and hit the deck. There's no possible way for him to have seen anybody in a car with tinted windows speeding off.
We don't see what's going on. I hit the ground and I saw a nut. I know that the nut was hit. So we ran up there to him. And Rev came out of the A&M barbershop the reverend at the time, the reverend, you know, tried to someone tried to hold me, kept telling her, say it's over, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who said it's over?
Nothing.
And when you say Rev, are you saying R-E-V?
Yeah, reverend, like a reverend, yes,
Are you
sir.
speaking of preacher?
Yes, sir.
And at the time that you hit the ground, were there any other people that were still outside with you that hit the ground?
Yeah, yes, sir.
When you hit the ground, were you still able to see the vehicle that from where the shots came?
Yeah.
All right. And was there ever a time when it was on McDaniel Street that you lost sight of that vehicle?
No.
Were you able to see the vehicle from the start of the shots to the end of the shots?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I think we hit to make that right on the outside drive.
Okay. Can you describe what the shot sounded like?
It was an assault rifle.
Okay. And when you heard the shots, did it sound like it was more than one gun being fired?
Yes, I don't like it.
Right. Before Nutt was shot, as well as the other two individuals that you said were shot, were you able to see what he was doing?
I don't think he was doing it at the time.
Before he was shot, and Chopper and Reggie described were shot as well. Were you still watching the car at that time?
I was through with the car. I was finished.
Okay. Had he already paid you?
Right.
I would like to show State's Exhibit 293 Yankee once more. And I want to go to timestamp the very beginning of this, if you will, the very beginning of the footage. All right. Not to play. Do you see Northside Drive on, from this timestamp, which is it should be 00?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, and do you also see McDaniel Street?
Right.
Utilizing the screen, make sure it's still functioning. All right. I want you to draw a line starting where you saw the vehicle come and where you saw it leave the scene.
So come about the barbershop.
Keep going.
Keep going.
As far as you know where it have traveled.
Right.
And then where did it go after that?
Okay. Straight up north side.
Okay. And is that as far where you stopped drawing that red line? Is that as far as you saw the vehicle go? You could see it go?
I could see it go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that as far as you could see it go?
Yeah, before I could see it go from here to there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever get up from the ground after the shots were fired?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Did you ever see Nutt fire a shot back?
No.
Okay. Did you ever see Reg fire a shot back?
No.
Did you ever see Chopper fire a shot back?
No, sir.
And is Reg and Chopper nicknames of the other two individuals that you knew at that time?
Mhm.
That a yes, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
After you got up off of the ground, did the other persons that you were shooting the breeze with that evening also get up off of the ground?
Yes, sir. Well, when they got home to where they went.
Okay. Can you say that
When they had gotten up, I don't know where they go.
After you got up, where, if anywhere, did you go?
Ran right into that. I ran right to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you ran to Nut, was Rev already there, or was he just in coming out?
Rev was just coming out too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And out of what barbershop did Rev come out?
A&M.
Okay. Do you know if Rev was an employee there?
He was an employee.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Had you ever been in A&M to get your hair cut?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who would cut your hair when you were going to A&M?
Mr. George.
Mr. George. Who is Mr. George?
Oh man, old man. I lived in Georgia since 1940 something, 30 something. Yeah. He had been in that long.
Who was the owner in 2015 of A&M Barbershop?
Mr. George.
What was Mr. George's last name, if you know?
I don't know the last name.
Okay. When you got off of the ground and saw Rev come to Nut, what is it that, or what if anything did you do when you got to Nut?
Well, when I started talking to him, so I got there before Rev. So when I got there, then Rev came a couple seconds after I came. Man, he just told me, he said it's over with. I said, what's it? He said, we ain't gonna make it, you know? Yeah.
Did you try to help Nut at any point?
I mean, whatever help I could do, I mean, whatever I could really do, you know? Yeah, he said he was going, you know?
Did you get on the ground with Nut?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you touch him in any way?
Right.
What did you do when you touched him?
I could put my arms around him, you know?
Did Nut remain conscious the entire time you were with him?
No.
Do you know if emergency services ever arrived to the crime scene?
They came.
Were you still there when they got there?
Yeah.
And what, if anything, happened when they arrived? What, if anything, did you do once they arrived? Excuse me.
I just walked right and left.
Where did you go, if anywhere?
I then went to the park.
What park are you talking about?
Cleopas Park, Northside Drive.
Okay. In which you're utilizing the same screen, what direction would that park be on the north side?
It's the same direction, but on the other side of the street you go up.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Across the street from Texaco, you go up that sidewalk. This side of the park is on Cleopas.
Is there any landmarks over there by Cleopas Park?
But I mean, it's her
Any
stuff.
restaurants?
I mean, got Burger King.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess that been there most since I was a little boy. So I guess it is.
Just bring it on, Sean.
Yes, sir.
Just a reminder, you all know this, you've heard it before, but hit the thumbs up, the like button on YouTube. YouTube likes when you interact with the channel. That means it will be promoted to more people, which means you get more company in the chat. So please, if you wouldn't mind, do the YouTube things. Like and subscribe.
Did you ever go back over to that area of the McDaniel Northside Drive area to wash cars after that?
Well, it slowed down a lot. It really slacked up, so I would go on Peter Street.
If you would cover your mouth so she can hear you. Yes.
It slowed down over in that area, like when it went down. So I would go on Peter Street and still wash cars.
And when you say slowed down, it slowed down. Are you talking about business?
Business wise, yeah.
Were you had anything like that happened in that area to your knowledge before while you were there? Objection out of relevance.
I sustain the objection.
Was there a time, excuse me, around when did you go back to that area, if at all, to start washing cars?
It was a month after, a few months after. And like I said, things were slowing down, business started to slow down, really at both barbershops, because people didn't want to come over in that area, you know.
I want to publish for the jury's viewing, which has already been admitted into evidence, that being State's Exhibit 12, Yankee. Okay. Mr. Davis, again, to your left is a screen showing the State's Exhibit 12Y. Utilizing this exhibit, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury if this was the area, in fact, where you washed the car, or did you wash it by vacuum?
His car at the time, I watched it inside right here.
Do you see any moisture or liquid on the ground?
Mm-hmm.
Is that from where you washed the vehicle?
It could have been, I don't know.
Did you do the inside and outside?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and is that your normal custom to do inside and outside?
Yes, sir.
And did did Nut have a nickname for you?
It's short.
You said Shorty?
Yeah, short thing. Yeah.
Okay, and how did you get that nickname?
He gave it to me
Okay, and why did he give you that nickname?
because I was short.
Oh, sir.
Just a brief note, sure.
Yeah. Not to
Do you remember ever speaking?
not to throw shade at Mr. Sammy Davis here, but that is the last thing Donovan Thomas saw in his life, and probably his voice. Sir Frank Otter, is this witness high as well? I don't think so, but he might have had a recreational use of illicit drugs throughout his lifetime. Let's just say that. And hello, Sir Frank Otter. Spiritual War, Dark Lotus, Indigo Luna is here. Hey, Indigo, good to have you here. You gorgeous woman. Val Palace here. Helen, Diogo, Ghostry, Sylvia, everybody who's here. Thank you for being here. Hit the like button, folks. You know it helps my channel.
To law enforcement, specifically as Detective Thorpe, after this was all said and done?
I don't remember it that fast, no.
Do you recall speaking with law enforcement at all or being interviewed after this?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know if a Detective Thorpe was in the room during those interviews?
I don't know my name.
Okay, all right. When you were interviewed by law enforcement, do you know if it was the same night or time later?
Sometime later.
Okay, about how much time later would you say it was?
I don't know, weeks, months, something like that. A few weeks or a month.
Is it fair to say it's years later?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
It's over no more, man, you know.
Where were you when you were interviewed by law enforcement years later?
Or I think I was incarcerated, man.
Were you in the Fulton County Jail?
Right.
Do you remember what for?
For a particular incident, same thing right here.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
For the same thing right here, what we're discussing now.
Okay.
That was for.
Okay, no, I think, what were you in the Fulton County Jail for?
I don't know whether forgery or something like that, probation, somewhere violation. I went up and down.
Did you speak to law enforcement willingly?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And
Now we are getting into the state trying to impeach this guy, because he
did
might
you
make
say
some
anything
inconsistencies here.
to law enforcement in those interviews with the hope of getting out of jail?
Objection.
I stand objection.
Were you promised anything
No, sir.
by law enforcement?
No, sir.
Did you immediately go tell the police on the night of the shooting what you saw happen?
I think I did. I think I had to say something to police concerning that.
Did your niece, do you have any nieces or nephews?
Yes, sir.
Do you have a niece who knew anything about this incident?
Objection, under cross examination.
I'll sustain the questions to form. You can
I'll rephrase. Have you talked to a niece related to what you saw and heard about this incident?
Yes.
And did your niece tell you that a television reporter was out?
I'll sustain this to form.
I have a few more questions for you, Mr. Davis.
All right.
And I am going to pivot back to State's Exhibit 293 Yankee. Okay. Okay, I am going to play for you State's Exhibit 293 Yankee, and I would ask for you to tell me to stop when you see the direction from which the vehicle that contained the shooters came from, okay?
I'm gonna object to that.
Basis. I sustain the objection.
All right. Just brief indulgence, John.
Yeah, and now the prosecution is showing how much of a junior he is because he is getting all of a sudden really bad at asking questions.
After this shooting occurred, you remember that?
Mhm.
And I would like to ask you a few more questions about that. Do you recall telling law enforcement that you actually laid eyes on the front passenger of the vehicle?
I said that.
Okay. And do you recall telling law enforcement during your interview that you recognized the front passenger from?
Now remember, when he said he was a distance away, heard the shots, hit the deck. But then he made a claim.
The mechanics.
I said that.
Hold on. I sustain the objections to form.
Do you recall? I'll ask you a different question. Where, if anywhere, did you tell law enforcement if you knew?
I'm going to object to the reading question.
I sustain this to form.
Do you know where you saw the front passenger? Did you recognize the front passenger from me?
I don't.
Are you familiar with the Mechanicsville area of Atlanta?
Yes, sir.
Do you know if anyone involved that was in that vehicle was from that area? Objection, I'm asking you.
Full rule, sir.
You can answer that question.
I know one guy from over there. That area.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
It was one guy they called Woody. He's from over there in Parkland. I think it was Woody, whatever they call it. It's in it. It's in it.
Okay, let me ask you a better question. Do you recall telling law enforcement that you knew? It's a different question now.
I say it's still leading us to form, Mr. Brown. So figure out another way to ask the question.
Now pay attention, for
Your Honor,
even the judge is getting annoyed here
Maybe
too.
who, what, when, where, why. Try that.
Maybe approach your
No,
Honor.
maybe who, what, when, where, why. Ask the question.
Yes, yes.
And junior prosecutor trying to avoid getting embarrassed. Imagine being told by the judge who, what, when, where, why. Asking questions is easy unless you're bad at it. And this prosecutor, whose name I don't care about, is really bad at asking questions.
Still. You got him on direct.
Sure. Who, if anyone, that you described in your interviews was from Mechanicsville?
Woody. forgot her name. It's Woody something. Nickname Woody, whatever.
Do you know, during your interview, do you recall providing a description of the person who was the first front seat passenger to law enforcement?
I had said that.
Okay, and do you recall, as a part of that description, providing any identifiers?
Right.
How did you describe the front passenger of that vehicle from where the shots rang out to law enforcement?
I said some like, I don't know, red, like brown, something like. But at that time, I was going through so much, man, mentally. You know, I was just want anybody to get locked up, man, for doing it to my friends. So I wasn't in my right frame of mind at the particular time, man.
Do you know how?
Now, Sammy Davis is making a claim about why did he say the things he said in that interview. And he says he was so upset and wanted anybody to pay for it. So he made a statement.
What kind of
The witness be allowed to finish his answer.
That's one of my right frame of mind.
Hold on. Sir, did you complete your last response?
Sir?
Did you complete your last response?
Yes,
That's what you're gonna say?
No, that was it.
All right, okay.
What hairstyle, if any, do you recall the front passenger of that vehicle from where the shots rang out had?
I don't know, man.
If I showed you a transcript of your interview from the day that you spoke with law enforcement, would that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
All right. Just briefly, no problem. And I am going to approach defense counsel with a copy of the same.
What exhibit what are you gonna mark it as, sir?
And just a brief indulgence. It would be State's Exhibit 323 Yankee Alpha 1.
One more time
323 Yankee Alpha 1.
for identification. Okay,
Yes, sir. Your Honor.
all right.
And I do believe defense counsel was a provided a copy. And I am turning to page 18. And I'm starting at line 21.
And
Excuse me,
the
line
junior
25.
prosecutor, whose name I don't care enough about to remember or finding out. Yep,
On
but
page
we already went
19,
look at this
at line 2.
thingy.
I don't want you to read out loud what it is that I'm handing
He
you.
already said
I want you to
he made
start here.
stuff up in the interview.
And then come over here and finish right here. And when you finish reading that, I want you to look up at me, okay? So from here to here.
All right. From 25 to what? To 3?
Page 18, line,
Okay,
page
I'm just
18, line 25 to page 19, line 2.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right. Have you had a chance to read the line numbers and page numbers that I directed you to?
Yes, sir.
After reading those line numbers of page 18, 25, line 25, and page 19, lines 1 and 2, what do you recall having told law enforcement that the hairstyle of the front seat passenger was?
It was red.
Dress. Do you recall, based on what you just read, what complexion you described the front seat passenger to have?
Yes, sir.
What complexion was it?
Brown skin.
Reds and brown skin in Atlanta.
And
You
close
tell
it
me,
if you
Chad.
can't read from it.
Okay. All right.
You tell me.
Briefly go. All right, do you recall the age that you indicated the front seat passenger may have been? Is that enough?
I can't recollect on that.
Okay, no problem. I'm gonna show you now State's Exhibit 323, Yankee Alpha 1 again, and I'm turning to page 20. And I'm gonna direct your attention to line 6 of that page to line 8, okay? So from here, which is line 6, to line 8. And when you've read it, look back up at me and I'll ask you a few more questions.
Okay.
Okay, did you have a chance to fairly review that transcript? Okay, about how old did you tell law enforcement that the front seat passenger was?
He's a young dude.
Okay, looking at me.
Right.
Okay, you said he's a young dude?
He's a
About how old
young,
did you tell?
brown-skinned,
All right, and do you
with
recall
dreadlocks.
about how tall you
You tell me, folks, how many of those
Is that a no?
Yes or no?
Okay, I'm now approaching
how
you
many
again,
of those are there
and
in
directing your
Atlanta?
attention on State's Exhibit 323 Yankee Alpha 1, and I am showing you line 23 of page 20. Line 23 to line 24, these two lines. Here you go. When you've had a chance to read them, you can look at them.
All right.
Okay, what did you tell law enforcement on that day? About his height?
By 5'8", 5'9".
Okay, I want you to look back up at me. And so do you recall if that front seat passenger had any facial hair? Looking at me.
No.
Okay, you don't recall? I'm now approaching you again to show you State's Exhibit 323 Yankee Alpha 1, and I am directing your attention to page 21 of that same exhibit, lines 2 through 3. And when you've read those lines, you can look back up at me.
Hi, Dave.
Well, this is a mess of a examination.
Yeah.
I've been listening the whole time. Oh my God, this thing.
I mean, yeah, I don't know what to say. Do you have anything to add?
Poor planning, poor prosecutor. I don't know what else to say. It was just a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, and this guy just said, I don't know. And he said, well, I didn't.
Okay, so let's step back and examine what this guy was supposed to testify to. He was supposed to somehow link the shooters of this barbershop shootout thing, drive-by, to the defendants, to the gang or whatever. First of all, he can't do that. Based on all of his testimony, he can't do that. But then on top of it, you have a prosecutor who doesn't know how to ask questions and doesn't know how to properly examine the witness, even to get the bad evidence out. It's just a joke. It's all a joke.
Yeah. And he clearly said, well, I lied to the cops at the time because I wanted somebody. And the description of the guy in the passenger seat. First of all,
young black
he
man
testified. He heard shots hit the deck. Now, I've never witnessed a drive-by shooting, but I would imagine they sped off like a mofo. When did he have time to see who was there? When? I suggest to you, there was no time. And then the description, brown-skinned, okay. Now we're down to 70.
We're down to
70% of Atlanta. Now we take dreadlocks, okay. Now we're down to 20% of Atlanta, young guy. Okay, so 10% of Atlanta men or boys fits that description.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. Was this today or yesterday, or when was this?
This is today.
And
this is one of their main witnesses about this, because due to his testimony, they the main suspect after that was Mr. Stilwell, who fit the description. But do you remember Mr. Sprinkles from from the Daubert hearings, who was the assistant district attorney at the time?
Right.
He chose not once but twice to drop the charges. There was never a trial about this. And still, here they are.
I know. I mean, not all crimes end up getting solved and get prosecuted. This is this is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's the downfall of
it. They have no evidence of this particular crime. Who done it? But they're going to try to pin it on this gang because it happened. It was an event that happened.
Yeah, that's about every unsolved crime in the Atlanta area between 2013 and 2019 is more or less pinned on these guys.
What a disaster.
Yeah. But let's finish off his testimony.
All right.
Okay, what did you tell law enforcement and looking at me?
No facial hair.
No facial?
Right.
Okay. Now, I want to circle back to something you said earlier. What did you mean when you said that you told Detective Ford that you was messed up and wanted to get somebody locked up because of the situation? What was that?
My mind was messed up, man. I wasn't thinking clearly.
Can you move your hand from your
Yeah, I wasn't thinking clearly, man. Wasn't in my right frame of mind at the particular time. Because all that was going on. I saw my friend got killed. So I just said, I don't want anybody to go down who I thought had something to do with it.
And, but is it fair to say that you weren't targeting any particular person?
No, I wasn't targeting.
Hold on. I stand the objection.
Yes, Your Honor. Don't answer your question.
Is this cross?
Were you targeting any particular?
Your mic is a bit low. I've tried to adjust it, but
No worries. I was just wondering if this was cross-examination.
No, this is direct examination.
He's gotten like 20 objections sustained. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in this, even Judge Glanville, this guy had so much trouble. So Judge Glanville, in front of the jury, told him, you need to ask a proper question. Who, what, when, where, why?
I heard that. That was great.
I've never heard a judge say that to a prosecutor.
That
is so embarrassing. Yeah, but spoiler, the defense chose to not cross-examine this guy because there's no need to.
Yeah, why would you? Yeah, I mean, I would just let it.
Why risk opening a door or anything? Just let him go.
Person, yeah.
No, not really.
Did you earlier say that you just wanted to get someone locked up?
Yeah, I said it.
Okay. Were you willing to lie to just get someone locked up?
Yeah, been in my frame of mind, yes, I will.
What an insanely stupid question.
He
were
just
you prepared to lie? And you said, yeah.
he's impeaching his own witness.
Okay. Oh, there's a verdict in the Daybell case. By the way, if you're
as it's guilty.
yeah. Now I heard in the Daybell case that they had a hearing. I don't have no idea before the jury came back. My guess is Daybell tried to get a deal before the jury came back, but the prosecution said, "Oh, off you fuck." So yeah, and Mr. Daybell is a prime candidate for the ultimate verdict or ultimate sentence. A very prime candidate. Now, I'm in principle against the death penalty, but sometimes my objections are really, really silent.
Yeah, I didn't watch much of the case because it was going to be primarily a rehash of Lori's case.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I understand that he is really kind of guilty.
Oh, there's no question about it. I don't understand why. If I was his attorney, I would have shaken him until he said, "Okay, I will plead to life in prison," because I assume they were going to give him the needle. Because what he did to those kids, one, the boy was by all certainty suffocated to death. The girl may or may not have been SA'd and then chopped up and then burnt.
Yeah, it's all kinds of bad stuff. And I don't know what their end game was, but I don't know. Well, Lori got out of the death penalty because of a technicality. And I say technicality because it's legitimate. It was a statutory. And they just didn't get a notice.
Yeah, they sent in the notice of DP too late. So DP was off the table in the Lori Daybell.
Yeah,
but let's
be eligible for it. Chad.
Yeah.
Were you as truthful as you could be during that time that you were interviewed by law enforcement to provide them with complete and accurate answers?
No, I wasn't.
What?
Jesus Christ, prosecutor!
Say to law enforcement
Stop digging the hole.
That you believe to be the truth.
I believe to be the truth of when I explained when the guy was coming down North Mike Daniel. Yeah, when the guy was coming down, the whole truth is when the guy was coming down Mike Daniel Street, is the truth. He stopped right there by came from the barber, came out the sunroof. He started the fire, kept straight on down Mike Daniel, then hit the right on North Side Drive. Before I could see him, he made a right at the Texaco and went up North Side. That's why to be the truth,
Were the descriptions that you provided of the front seat passenger the truth?
No.
Okay. Was the sounds of the firearms that you heard to be discharged the truth?
That's the truth.
Where you went to help Nut after he hit the ground, was that the truth?
That's the truth.
Was what Nut told you when you went and put your arms around him the truth?
That's the truth.
When Rev came out of the barbershop, was that the truth?
That's the truth.
When you stopped to get up off of the ground after you saw the vehicle come down the McDaniel Street, was that the truth?
That's the truth.
Is the fact that you watched vehicles in that area the truth?
The truth.
All right. When you talked to the detectives, was I in the room?
No, sir.
Okay. When you talked to law enforcement, were these jurors in the room?
No.
Okay. Were any of the defendants on this case inside the room?
Hold on, quick. I'll stand the objection.
Yeah, that's an improper question.
22.
Just a brief indulgence.
Yeah. Remember, this judge is so pro-prosecution, he could more or less sit at the prosecution's table. This is how bad this junior prosecutor, whose name I don't care enough about him to learn. This is how bad he is.
So bad. You know, it's got me thinking, maybe this is a throwaway witness.
It might be because they have another one testifying about the event as well, who was a witness at the shooting. And he testifies about more or less the exact same thing.
Okay.
And then, yeah, it's not good.
And finally, Mr. Davis, is what you have told the jury, ladies and gentlemen of the jury today.
I'm going to object to what I believe that question should be improper.
Your Honor, I believe.
Let me hear the question first, Mr. Adams.
Yes, Your Honor. Is what you have told the ladies and gentlemen of the jury today, to the best of your recollection, accurate and true?
Yes,
I'm
sir.
going to object, Your Honor. It's improper.
I sustain the objection.
Did you have any further involvement with this particular incident after you spoke with law enforcement?
No, sir.
No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Cross. Mr. Weinstein.
No cross, Your Honor.
Ms. D. Williams. Mr. Adams.
No question.
Mr. Sharp. I miss anybody? Let's see. Oh, Miss Westmoreland. Thank you, madam. All right. Anybody else I missed? Okay. May we permanently or temporarily excuse Mr. Davis?
Permanently, Your Honor.
Mr. Davis? Over here. Everybody does that. Don't worry about it. Mr. Davis, I'm going to permanently excuse you as a witness. Please don't discuss your testimony with anybody except the attorneys in this case, okay? And you're free to go about whatever it is you have on your list of things to do today, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
That was a disaster of a witness. Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, I keep reminding folks, and the judge forced the prosecution to trim down to the bare essentials, which the prosecution said is 209 witnesses. This is one of them.
Necessary witness. Okay.
Now imagine how bad the 500 that didn't make the cut. Imagine how bad those would have been.
That's horrible.
Oh. And then, yeah, they have a break. And then you have this guy who testified more or less about the exact same thing. This is witness number 2, who was an eyewitness to the drive-by shooting. Worthless. More or less the same thing. The car came, pew, 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 pew. Donovan Thomas.
The witness testified that he made up facts just to get somebody charged.
Yeah. Now this guy, you can hear him talk, but there's absolutely nothing of value, and they just go over the same thing again. Do you recognize the barbershop? Here's that picture. Here's another picture. Here is the shooting. This is the second time they are showing this video. The defense said this is cumulative. The jury has already seen this through a prior witness, but it was allowed. And then it was another break. This is lunch break. Then they continued. They are watching a new part of the video. Then no cross-examination. And then this guy. This guy I haven't listened to, but that will be for tomorrow or Saturday or Monday. This is the third eyewitness to the shooting. And at cumulative, anyone? Cumulative? Yeah. Something of the sort.
Have they really established that this gang, or whatever you want to call it, has been affiliated with anything, any crime?
Well, they knew each other. I mean, they know people who live in the same area. That's about it. And the prosecution in the RICO Act, the RICO charge, there are 196 underlying or overt acts. What the main one is the murder of Donovan Thomas, which back in 2015, 2016, 2017, there were suspects, and 2 times Assistant District Attorney Sprinkles chose to drop it. 2 times, but here we are. Now, this isn't an underlying and overt act. This is charge 2. You have the RICO charge, then you have the Donovan Thomas murder charge. This was supposed to be the nail in the coffin, the murder of Donovan Thomas, and it's absolute horseshit. Absolute horseshit.
Yeah, that was a bad one.
Yeah. Now, so I posted the link to my pre-trial playlist, where you can see where ADA Sprinkles testifies in a pre-trial hearing, so you can hear for yourself how he actually dropped the charges.
Is his name actually Sprinkles?
Yes, his name is actually Sprinkles.
That's awesome.
And he's quite short. He has brown curly hair, so we called him the Hobbit.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, tomorrow, my viewers have haunted me for a bit. I need to react to SOVCITs, sovereign citizens. So unless something really interesting happens in this trial, I will move the recap to Monday, so I can have a drink and react to sovereign citizens. My only reaction video or stream I've done so far is what's the woman's name now again? What's
Nancy Grace.
Nancy Grace. That's the one reaction I've done so far, and that since then, once in a while, I threaten to play one of her videos on my stream, unless you pay me lots of super chats. And people always super chat because nobody wants to watch Nancy Grace. Now, I have to be careful with showing Nancy Grace, because if you show Nancy Grace 3 times in one day, she might appear.
That I hear, yeah.
Yeah. So tomorrow will be some kind of reaction stream to sovereign citizens.
I think you should do a shot every time one of them says jurisdiction.
No. No. Yeah. And then later tomorrow, I will join Dani Ann's birthday stream. She turns 34. So you will see me over there as well. Dave, what are you going to do?
I have nothing planned but Jody coming up on Saturday at noon. Yeah. That's the only thing that I have planned. Otherwise, I'm working and doing my thing. I might have
a Lego stream coming up.
No, just the Jody stream. I don't have anything else coming up.
Oh, okay. So Jody airs on Saturday at noon Eastern time.
Yes, which is always a great show if you guys haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so fun to do that. Now, apparently a recovery addict is streaming the verdict in the chat table, so I will be sending you all over there. But thank you, folks, for being here. Thank you for allowing me to do this. Oh. No, not that one. That one.
There we go.
Thank you, folks, for allowing me to do this. Thank you for the gifted memberships. Much appreciated. I will post a link to the Discord after this stream. Go over to Recovery Addict and say hi from me. And I will see you all tomorrow. Bring friends and money. I'm going to the United States in August.
Yes.
So I need gas money and food money and stuff like that. Okay. Yeah. I will send you off with the defense attorneys, the 6 main defense attorneys anthem. And I will see you all back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Young souls.